It's my privilege, actually, to welcome you to this joint session on Japan, on Egypt-Japan exchange of expertise towards water and the climate challenges. My name is Ahmed El-Hadi. I'm serving as a lecturer and director of the Construction Engineering and Management program within the British University in Egypt. And I'm also working as a water projects management expert. It is actually great pleasure to me to serve moderating this promising session. I hope you find it interesting, beneficial, fruitful, through mutual sharing of insights and expertise. Today, we bring together two great nations with distinct yet deeply intertwined experiences in managing some of the world's most pressing water-related issues. Egypt, with its predominantly arid environment, faced the daunting task of optimizing limited freshwater resources amidst rising demands. In contrast, Japan contends with frequent flooding and complex coastal management challenges, intensified by its island geography and heavy rainfall patterns. Despite these differences between the great two nations, both countries share a common goal: to build resilient and adaptive strategies in the face of climate challenges and climate change. Through this dialogue, we aim to foster mutual learning and explore innovative solutions for integrated water resources management, flood control, and coastal protection. The long-standing collaboration between Egypt and Japan showcases the power of mutual learning and shared expertise in tackling complex water and climate challenges, enhancing resilience and sustainability for both nations. We deeply appreciate Japan's unwavering support in this field and in other areas that contribute to Egypt's development and capacity building. I look forward to the insights and the collaborative spirit that this session promises to offer as we work together to address these shared challenges. I would like first to invite Mr. Saito Hiroki, the Director General, Water Resources Department of Water and Disaster Management Bureau within the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transportation of Japan, and also serving as Secretary General of the Secretariat of the Headquarters of Water Cycle Policy, Cabinet Secretariat of Japan. Mr. Saito, please. Mr. Saito will open the session kindly and give his remarks from the Japan side.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for your attendance this meeting. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am very glad to have a chance to attend this meeting. My name is Saito Hiroyuki. I'm a Secretary General of Water Cycle Policy of Japan. The Water Cycle Policy Headquarters, of which I am Secretary General, is chaired by the Prime Minister and includes all ministers. And as a whole government, it discusses and decides on policies related to the water policy. My role is to share the goal of maintaining or restoring a sound water cycle with all relevant government ministries and agencies, and to coordinate a comprehensive policy across government. The United Nations Water Conference in March 2023 marked the beginning of Japan-Egypt relations in the field of water. Together with His Excellency Professor Hani Sueran, who is not here, unfortunately, the former special envoy to the Prime Minister to the Prime Minister of Japan, Her Excellency Miss Kamikawa Yoko, co-chaired and later became Foreign Minister of Japan, led our country's diplomacy. Her Excellency Ms. Kamikawa conveyed the message to His Excellency Minister Sweram and everyone else here. It is very gratifying to see that so many activities are continuing as a legacy of the 2023 Water Conference. I hope those activities will continue in the future. During the UN 2023 Water Conference, Her Excellency Ms. Kamikawa and His Excellency Professor Hani Sweram agreed on the importance of cooperation based on the concept of dry Egypt and wet Japan through discussion in the Interactive Dialogue 3. This is the idea with the concept of increasing floods and drought in every corner of the world due to climate change. It will become more important for all countries to share the experience of flood-prone countries like Japan and many Asian countries, as well as the experience of drought-prone countries like Egypt and African and Arab countries. Let's take a closer look. Japan's annual rainfall is about 1.5 times the world average, so it seems that it rains a lot in Japan. You might be envious. However, when we calculate the amount of rainfall per capita, Japan is only about a quarter of the world average. In particular, the amount of water resources per capita in Tokyo metropolitan area is almost the same as Egypt indeed. For this reason, in Japan, just like in your country, it was necessary to find ways to store and use water wisely. Japan has invested huge amount of money in water resource development and has the fourth largest number of dams in the world. In terms of water consumption, both countries use about 78 cubic kilometers per year. There is not much difference between the two countries. The purpose of water use is also similar. With most water going to agriculture and less to water supply and industrial use. In order to get this water, Egypt obtained water from the Nile, from especially tremendously huge Aswan High Dam, while Japan built many dams on short and steep rivers to store water resources. Let's share these ideas and efforts and tackle the challenge together. And let's work together to contribute to the international community through various projects such as the AWARE initiative led by Egypt and the International Standardization Initiative led by Japan. I look forward to a good discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saito, for the informative speech and remarks. I would just like to introduce our list of distinguished speakers. We have today Engineer Walid Haïi, Head of Planning Sector within Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, Mauri of Egypt, and he is also serving as the Executive Director of the Cairo Water Week Permanent Secretariat. Engineer Walid actually got an urgent commitment. However, he should be joining us during the session. We have also within our esteemed colleagues, Dr. Dua Amin, Deputy Director of Water Resources Research Institute within National Water Resource Center of Mauri, Egypt. Welcome to that. We have also Mr. Konami Takahiro, the Director of International Affairs Office, Water and Disaster Management Bureau of Japan. Welcome, sir. And we have Engineer Salwa Abdel Fattah, Head of Central Administration of Implementation and Maintenance for Red Sea within Shore Protection Authority within Mauri of Egypt. Welcome, Madam. And we have Dr. Okazumi Tosheyo, Executive Office, Senior Civil Chief Engineer within Token CWW Consultants within the Corporation Limited of Japan. Welcome, sir. Now I would give the speech to Dr. Dua Amin to give us her insights about the flood control and the expertise of Egypt. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our presentation today will talk about flooding control and the mitigation and the experience of Ministry of Water Resources Irrigation and its measures to mitigate the flood and flood hazard. First, we want to talk about the types of floods. We have two main types of floods: the river floods, which occur when the water level in the river increase, and then the inundation is coming to expansion for the neighbor area of the land neighboring the river streams. And actually, this type of flood, now after the High Aswan Dam, it's controlled, and the operation and policies of the High Aswan Dam is based on a monthly forecast of the Nile flow. The second type of the flood is the flash flood, which occur by an intense high velocity of water, which caused by a huge and heavy rainfall, which falling during a very short time. This makes very dangerous and destructive flood. And of course, we need to mitigate this risk because it is already have a huge dangerous for the people and for the property. And it is occurred because of this short term of heavy rainfall falling off a highland area and flows to the lower land area through the valley bothoms. At the first, we know that Egypt is located in a very arid area, and it receives a very little amount of precipitation. It is ranged from 0 in the desert until 140 millimeters per year in the north coast region. And the annual amount of rainwater does not exceed 1.3 BCM per year, and the average annual rainfall, which is already used in the agriculture, is about 1 BCM per year only. And if you see, these curves tell you that the trend in the last century for the precipitation over Egypt in several areas that already have the rainfall, this area and this pattern tell us that in last century it is decreased. However, there is an intense and frequency of severe floods and flash floods is occurred, and the frequent is increased with this intense rainfall and expansion flood for many areas now. This is some photos about the causes of event damage that is occurred by the flash floods. And when we see this graph, which tells us that the storm and the frequency of the storm in the last 10 years is increased. We already receive about more than one storms and sudden storms by the year. And also the expansion of this flood over the area is already increased to cover some areas was not rainy before. The flood measurement that already taken in order to mitigate the hazard and the risk from the flood or flash flood, there is several measures, structural measures and non-structural measures. Structural measures which include all the protection structures that can protect from the flood, and non-structural measures which contain monitoring, flood forecasting, early warning system, floodplain forcing, and other type of studies and hydrological models can help in mitigate the flood. This is a samples of some works, protection works that already built here in Egypt. And if we're talking about the non-structural measures, we have an accurate rainfall monitoring. We should have an accurate rainfall monitoring, even by engaged network or even by satellite images, rainfall produced by satellite images. And of course, we should be careful by the short-term forecast. And we know the storm which is occurred in 2020, and by the accurate forecast that we have, we can take an action and say to all people to stay at home and save lives in this day. Also, updating the hydrological studies, it is a kind of non-structural measures. And because of the intense and the frequent and increasing in the frequency of the sudden storms that it was occurred, so the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation try to manage that by increase the return period of the design storm, which is using in order to design the protection works. So now, after we use 100-year return period, we transfer to 200-year return period in order to take safe of our structures to mitigate the flood risk. And here, this is a priorities which is putting by the Ministry of Water Resources in order to give the first priority, that is, it is the Wadi system, which already have structures and buildings and cities, and also investment in the outlet of these wadis, but there is no actually any protection works in these wadi. And the second one is the priorities of the second one is the Wadi system, which already has some of protection works, but it is designed on a 100-year return period, so it will transfer to 200 or enhance to 200-year return period. And the third priorities is the Wadi system, which already there is no any cities or any building capacity in the outlet of these wadis, and these wadis has no structures also. So this is the priority which is done or putting by the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in order to go through the investment in these structures in order to mitigate the flood risk. We also have Atlas Flash Flood Series for all governorate, which are already suffering from the flash floods. And in this Atlas, you can have a degree and the level of the flood risk, and for all Wadi system in the governorate, and it produces a kind of these maps, and you can browse these atlas actually in the NWRC section in this conference. You can find it in the exception. How we can say that the flood protection works lose its function? Actually, there is many reasons to lose the function of the protection works. One of them to have an occurrence of a storm larger than the design storm. And in our area, the design storm now is 200-year return period. This is an example for Derna city in Libya, which already suffered in 2023, the last year, suffered from a high intensive rainfall, which is already have about 30,000 people dead during this storm. Actually, this storm was a very high storm. It is exceed any protection works that is already have in Derna city. Also, the accumulation of sediment upstream the protection works, it is also lose the protection works its function, and it is already should be removed before the storm occurrence. Also, the encouragement on the Wadi Basin downstream the protection dams. Some people say that there is a dam, it will save us, but it's not the true. If we have a high storm which is exceeding the design storm, it will be more damage for people who are encouragement on Wadi Basin. Also, encouragement on protection facilities, such as the discharge of factory water and the treatment plants, upstream protection dams. These also lose the protection works its efficiency to save and to protect the downstream. In conclusion, the climate change increased in frequency of flash storms or flash floods, and flash floods cause loss of life and significant damage to property. Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation have many range of measures, ranged from structural to non-structural measures, and protection works can help to reduce the flood damage, but it is not offer a complete protection for the area downstream them. It is important to maintain protection structures and remove sediment layers upstream dams, and of course, encouragement on protection structures and the Wadi streams result in the loss of the efficiency of protection works. Thanks you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dua, for the informative insights regarding the flood protection, including the structural measures and the non-structural measures against flood issues, and also summarizing some of the efforts that Egypt is experiencing against the flood protection, and also considering the diminished effectiveness of the current work protections against the current flood threats within the climate challenges. Thank you very much. I'm sure that there should be some questions for Dr. Dua, but we actually deferring the questions until the end of the session for more efficiency for the session. So now I would call Mr. Konami Takahiro, who is the Director of International Affairs Office of Water and Disaster Management Bureau of Japan, to take the floor, please. As you like. You want here or there? As you like.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Chair. I'm Takahiro Konami, Director of International Affairs of the Water and Disaster Management Bureau of Japan. And firstly, I'd like to apologize. I prepared 32 slides for allocated only 10 minutes. So I tried to compress my presentation, but please understand my enthusiastic stance there's a lot of things should be discussed between our two countries. So let's go. Okay. First, I'd like to review the river management policy of Japan. I think we saw the similar chart in Egypt. So we also facing the climate change. This is the statistics of the torrential rain in Japan. It increasing 48% in these 3 decades. It's similar in every country. So this is actual damage of the floods in Japan. And we also analyzed, assessed the impact, not with, led by the Professor Toshioka sitting there. So this is a result of the assessment of the global warming on recent floods in Japan. And the estimation is from 65% to 15 or 16% increase will be estimated due to the climate change. So then we discussed internally in the government with academic persons and relevant people. I will omit the detailed discussion today, but we should revise the river planning to face the increasing rainfall. So we decided to face the rainfall of a 10-point increase than before, considering 2 degrees rise in the global warming. And also, we make an increasing the investment infrastructure. Of course, Japan has a long history of infrastructure investment, like in Egypt. So, but we also accelerate infrastructure investment facing to the climate change. And also, we change the river plan to face the climate change, considering the increase of 10% in rainfall. I will skip the detailed discussion of how we change the plan. The point is maybe same in this country. So it's not so effective to face all risks. It's might be more than the 10%. So to use all the structure, only by the structural measures. So we decided to change the river management under the keyword of by all, which means involve all stakeholders to flood protection, including farmers, hydropower managers, and city planning divisions, and so on. This is a similar one example of the similar activity in Japan. This is a schoolyard. Usually, children are playing or studying sports, such kind of the activities, but it will become a flood storage in rainy days. So this is developed decades ago, but we decided to expand such kind of activities involving different stakeholders than the river manager to across our country. This is an example of the Shizuoka city, which had started similar activity in the 50 years ago, half century ago, and this is the hometown of Her Excellency Miss Yoko Kamikawa. So this red dot and blue dot is a result of the involvement of the other stakeholders. The red dot means a private flood storage, and blue dot shows flood storage developed in the public facilities. So this is obviously has a very good results. The right column shows the drastic decrease of inundation on similar flood events compared to the 50 years ago. And also, we introduced non-structural measures like in the presentation before. So we have established a flood forecast system and flood information system and emergency alert to the residents. So it's similar to your country. So I'd like to introduce specific Japanese. So this is an example of the flood information sharing. So I will not go into detail, but you can ask us if you need a detail. I'd like to introduce one interesting activity. So this is I call it in English, Call Lovers to Evacuate campaign. This is a campaign to call your friends, your mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, who are living in the flood risk area. So later, the children or grandchildren to make a call to their lovers, families, to evacuate. Because young ages, youth ages are easy to access to the system or alert or such kind of the information technology, but the elderly people is not so in general. So this is now these days, so Japan is initiating such kind of activities. And also structural measures, how many minutes left? 5 minutes? Okay, good. Yeah. So we would like to introduce our activity on dam. So there is Japan is the fourth largest country in the number of dams. So there is more than 3,000 dams in Japan. Everything is small. So in total amount of the reservoir in Japan is far smaller than the high dam in this country. So then we should make full use of existing dams, which is not in some cases not efficiently used because there is a lot of old dams and aged dams, and based on the very old planning situation. So then we are introducing the dam upgrading technologies. For example, the next. Just increasing the capacity, elevating the dam bodies, or making it possible to make a more rapid flood control to constructing additional spillway discharge tunnel to existing dams, or connecting two reservoirs to make more efficient use of the reservoirs, and also sediment management. So sediment is a very serious challenge in many dams in Japan. So then we make a various measurements to reduce and stop sedimentation of the reservoir. And in addition, we are planning to more advanced dam management technology to be installed in the existing dam. We call it hybrid dam, but maybe flexible dam management is more easily understood. So this is a concept of the dam management in Japan. Basically, in total, the total reservoir capacity of Japan is 18 billion cubic meter. It's very small compared to the high dam, as I said. So, but we only use about 30% of them, the total reservoir capacity, to flood management, because we need water resources. So water resources capacity cannot be used to flood management in general. But however, now we are developing a technology to using accurate flood forecast to make it possible to pre-discharge of the water level, which enable to use flood capacity should be empty in usual to water resources capacity, and vice versa. We can use water resources capacity, usually full of water, to use flood capacity in case the flood is forecasted. And also, we are in cooperation with Egypt after the UN 2023 Water Conference. We are leading the international society code. 2 minutes left? Okay, no problem. So the AWARE initiative, which Japan is also supporting, is one very important pillar of the outcome of the UN Water Conference. And also, Japan is moving forward to make an outcome of the UN Water Conference, which His Excellency Professor Haynes William is standing here, and the other person is Her Excellency Miss Yoko Kamikawa. was discussed for hours in the UN headquarters in New York. So in total, 41 intervention was made in the UN Quarter Conference, and we, so this is a photo at that time. And we made, we have proposed the action workflow, very generalized the action workflow for hydrological risks considering climate change, and it was a basement of the, become a basement of the discussion in the ID3, Interactive Dialogue 3 of the UN Water Conference. And we are planning to make this discussion in continuously proceed in the ISO, International Organization of the Standardization, to make a common standards on hydrological risks based on the discussion of the UN 2023 Water Conference. We already, now we are planning to make an official proposal to the ISO Secretariat soon. And of course, we invite the Egyptian specialist to discussion here. Already, including Egypt, we have discussed bilaterally with various international organizations and the member states as well. So then we will make an official proposal to the ISO in late 2024, and will call for the specialists to make a discussion in next year, early next year. So I'd like to Egyptian colleagues to join in such discussion as well. That's all. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Konami. Just please let me quote from your presentation, "Call lovers to evacuate," which actually simplifies how much the threats of floods Japan is experiencing. And the good thing actually is that they are, what's actually surprising me always, they are, Japanese people are dealing with floods as a style of life, as a friend. And they are making all the quantitative analysis, all the extreme events plans, which is a high priority for Egypt also, by the way. But the thing is, they are making it as a lifestyle. And this quote simplifies actually how Japan is reacting to this. And we, of course, can see a very good potential of collaboration with the Egyptian experts, between Egyptian experts and Japanese experts in this field for future collaboration. Thank you very much, Mr. Konami. And now I would ask Engineer Salwa Abdel Fattah, Head of Central Administration of Implementation and Maintenance of Red Sea within Shore Protection Authority at Mauri of Egypt. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I will I will present coastal zone management in the context of climate change. Coastal zone management is increasingly critical due to the country's extensive coastal line along the Mediterranean and Red Seas, which is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Egypt faces significant challenges such as rising sea level, coastal erosion, and the degradation of marine ecosystems, all of which threaten the livelihood of coastal communities and the nation's economy. The Nile Delta, a crucial area for agriculture and biodiversity, is particularly at risk, with projections indicating substantial land loss and seawater intrusion. Effective coastal zone management in Egypt aims to balance environmental protection with socio-economic development, ensuring the sustainability of coastal resources while adapting to change climate conditions. Now, the problem of sea level in Egypt, it is considered most problem in Egypt. According to the IPCC latest report, indicating that by 2050, the sea level are expected to rise by approximately 0.3 to 0.6 meters under different emission scenarios. And also by 2100, projected sea level rise ranges from about 0.6 to 1.1 meters. The level rise could cause significant problems such as beach erosion, floods, and salt water intrusion into the aquifers and surface waters. So the IPCC report emphasizes the urgent need for mitigation and adaptation strategies to address the impacts of sea level rise, particularly for vulnerable coastal regions. Enhanced preparedness and resilient resources are critical to minimizing risks associated with the ongoing challenges. Now we'll present some the risks of the sea water level rise in Egypt. Rising sea level lead to increasing flood, erosion, and saltwater intrusion into freshwater aquifers, affecting agriculture and drinking water supplies. Studies indicate that sea level along the Egyptian coast have been rising at a rate of approximately 3 to 4 millimeter per year, similar to the global trends. Also, millions of people living in coastal areas like Alexandria and Port Said may face displacement and loss of property due to flooding. Saltwater intrusion can degrade agricultural lands, reducing productivity and threatening food security. Critical infrastructure, including roads, buildings, and utilities, are at risk from flooding and erosion, necessitating costly adaptation and repairs. Increased flooding can lead to waterborne diseases and impact public health systems, particularly in vulnerable communities. Implementing comprehensive strategies that balance ecological health, economic activities, and community needs. So we have to do some actions to avoid this problem by restoring coastal ecosystem to buffer against storm surges and enhance resilience. Also, investing in resilient infrastructure and food defenses to protect coastal communities, involving local population in planning and decision-making to ensure that adaptation measures are effective and culturally appropriate. Addressing sea level rise in Egypt requires urgent action and coordinated efforts across various sectors. Sustainable integrated coast zone management and adaptation strategies are essential to mitigate risks and protect vulnerable communities and ecosystems in the face of ongoing climate change. Now we can see the difference in Shore Protection Authority. Sometimes we carried some projects using hard structure and sometimes using the soft instructions, and we can now see the difference between the soft solutions and hard protection measures. Hard solution is a coastal management technique used to protect coasts by absorbing the energy of waves, preventing erosion and flooding. They are highly visible, man-made structure, and to stop or disrupt natural process. These structures are very expensive, short-term solutions, and often they can have a negative impact on the environment. Installing hard engineering structures is one coastal location can have detrimental effects further down the coast. Now we can see some examples of these hard structures like sea walls and revetment constructed from concrete and also protected from upland erosion and is a barrier to flooding, but waves are still powerful and can break down and erode the sea wall. Also very expensive to implement and maintain, and we can see here Rosetta sea wall. The second type of hard structure is breakwaters, built parallel to the coast, prevent also longshore drift and allow beaches to build up according to the type of breakwater, but also create erosion further down the coast and make hazards to the swimmers, just like rip currents, and also very expensive, as the Russell bar in breakwaters. The last example, groins built at right angle to the coast or to the beach, prevent longshore also and allow beach to build up, but create erosion further down the coast and also very expensive and is unattractive. The cost is unattractive. Soft solution work with nature to protect the most rather than trying to stop natural process. It uses ecological principles and practices, therefore making less a negative impact on the natural environment. Soft engineering is less expensive to implement and maintain and creates more long-term sustainable solutions than hard engineering structures. Also some examples of these soft structures like beach nourishment, dunes, rejuvenation, and dikes, all to save the cost, but sometimes a lot of maintenance is required and also maintenance is sustainable required. Now I will present some recommendations taking into account to avoid these problems. Integrated coastal zone management by implementing comprehensive strategies that balance environmental protection, also invest in nature-based solutions, strengthen infrastructures, and enhance community engagement, promote climate resilience agriculture, develop early warning systems, and also policy and legislative frameworks, research and capacity building, secure funding and partnerships, public awareness campaigns. So, by implementing these recommendations, Egypt can enhance its resilience to climate change and safeguard its coastal communities and ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Salwa Abdel Fattah, for this informative presentation. What hit my mind is by 2050, there will be a rise of around 0.5 meter to the Egyptian coastal zones. And we have in Egypt here around 3,500 kilometers of the Red Sea and Mediterranean, which is actually very risky. And Egypt taken this very serious, making major investments in this regard. And what is also clear is that Egypt started very early since initiating the Shore Protection Authority since 70s, Engineer Salwa, I can remember, 70s of the previous century, yes, which actually is a great thing that Egypt is in advance to mitigate and to try to mitigate the risks that might happen due to the climate challenges and climate change. Thank you, Engineer Salwa, again for this informative presentation. I would ask now our colleague, Dr. Okazumi Tusheyo, the Executive Officer and Senior Chief Engineer within Token CWW Consultants of Japan. The floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Excellency Mr. Wabito, and distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. I am Okazumi Toshio, working for the private sector token consultants. Now we are supporting Ministry, Mr. Saito, Mr. Konami's activity to collaborate to the international countries, international activities. The Japan Water Forum and our token consultant is supporting their activities as a private sectors. And well, actually, I just retired from the ministry just a few years ago. So then Mr. Konami introduced Japanese experience in the flood control and flood management activities. Yeah, of course, the flood management is not only one countermeasures. Very difficult to combine all the countermeasures to how to mitigate the damages. That's the flood mitigation. But now I just introduced the flood risk mapping project. That is one of the non-structure measure which Ms. Doan introduced. That this is a potential collaboration project for Egyptian and our Japanese colleagues. So just briefly, the one flood risk mapping project. Okay, so firstly, I just briefly introduced what is a flood risk mapping. Of course, someone knows the risk. What is risk? Risk is the potential damage. How much damage will occur in the future or in a certain flood magnitude. Risk comes from the hazard multiplied exposure divided by coping capacity. Hazard means, of course, it's precipitation. Once the climate change occurs, this precipitation will be changed, the bigger and sometimes the smaller. And exposure is people and assets who live in that dangerous areas. If the economic growth and people who live in that area was increased, then exposure is increased. Coping capacity is a countermeasure for flood. The river dike and dams and the retaining basins keep conservation of the nature areas. So then these are the simple formulation of the risks. Then we can create that kind of combine all the information into one map. So this map is very useful to identify where and how much damage will occur in the future in each part of the map, and help the managers to decide where to implement flood mitigation measures, what kind of levee, what size of levee, and which location should be installed as levees and dams. So the manager can easily understand this kind of dangerous areas to help develop the land use plan. Then inform the people who live in that area, citizens and residents, can easily to understand where to live and where to evacuate. That's the purpose of the flood risk map. Okay, so the needs of flood risk mapping project. Someone said the global risk map is available, but like adequate or some other, the mapping is available, but this map is based on the very rough topographical and rainfall data, so not so reliable. So that's why we strongly recommend making map yourselves, or the manager and the government and local government can create the maps to understand the risk of the river basins. So then, of course, to create this kind of map is very hard. Requires accurate topographical data and analytical models and rainfall runoff inundation model is necessary. But now we just follow that flood risk mapping procedure, data collection, selection of data to be used, and the calculation and development of model and the validations, creation of flood risk map, and drafting the guidelines. So it's very hard to work on that project. A lot of difficulties to implement this flood risk mapping. First one is understanding river basin and the river channel topography. Yeah, of course, the watershed topography and the cross-sectional river geometry is time-consuming and labor-intensive. But now, our Japanese colleague JAXA has a good satellite and observe the topographical data. Then this observed data is available on the website. 30-meter elevation data resolution is free of charge. So then 5-meter elevation data is not so expensive. So that's why we recommend to use that information. And second is understanding river connections. Of course, once we can use that satellite data, it's very hard to identify which river is going different directions. But now the associate professor at Tokyo University, Yamazaki, is making a merit hydro that recently they can easily to access to this information. So then we also can recommend this kind of information. Understanding rainfall in the watershed. Yes, of course, Ms. Doan introduced that GS map. Also, JAXA satellite is measuring the GS map, the rainfall data. And rainfall runoff inundation model. Kyoto University Professor Sayama and ICHAM, Professor Koike is there, and ICHAM is developed the RRI model and improved these models. So that's we can solve these difficulties. The first one is understanding river basin and river channel topography. You can easily understand the difference of using these proposed informations. Yeah, this one, understanding of river connections. Associate Professor Yamazaki prepared this kind of information on their website. Left-hand side that's China, Pearl River areas. So then we can recognize which direction this river is going down. So this is the GS map, which JAXA is providing as free of charge on their website. So this is a rainfall runoff inundation model, which is the Professor Sayama of Kyoto University and improved by ICHAM. So this is easier to use this open data model and easy to understand to use this model. This was already applied to the Thailand, Pakistan, Philippines, Indonesia, Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia. So this is quite useful model to use that analyze this flood. And this is GUI, the user interface. Okay, so now ministry is working on the Asian countries to demonstrate of the Indonesia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. So this will be produced not so, maybe very soon that they can provide this map to introduce this kind of information to the countries. Actually, this kind of project was launched in the last Asia Pacific Water Summit 2022 and the Kumamoto Initiative for Water. So then this project is part of their initiative. So then result of this flood risk mapping, they can use this result for the real countermeasures, construction of dams or sewage system and irrigation and drainage facilities. So maybe this kind of project can be potentially work together for Egyptian and Japanese activity. Okay, thank you very much. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Tosheyo, for this practical and informative information from a different perspective regarding flood risks and the challenges facing the flood mapping and solutions. It's very informative, actually, and thank you also for mentioning to such collaboration and the potential of collaboration. I believe we are sharing some of the most critical issues regarding the floods and also coastal protection and others that we can take it further for collaboration. And I believe that only 90 minutes for this session cannot be enough to discuss all the details and expertise regarding this. It needs more and more. However, we consider this session as a spark that refresh and foster the collaboration between Egypt and Japan on this regard. So I would ask Mr. Saito and the colleagues from Japan to have some meetings during this Cairo Water Week with Engineer Walid and other colleagues from Shore Protection and other authorities within Maori. And we can hopefully conclude something like a memorandum of understanding of such collaboration regarding sharing of information, sharing of knowledge, capacity building, and others in this regards. Okay, Mr. Saito? Okay? Okay. When?
Sure.
That's great. So now, as Engineer Walid promised to join us, he now here, and I would ask him please to take the floor to give your remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for my colleagues. I will start with the last point that Ahmed have mentioned, because yesterday actually we had a bilateral meeting with the Japanese delegation with the minister, and we talked about the MOU between the two ministers. So it is already somehow in the pipeline. We can say we'll have some draft to discuss and agree with. And also my presentation, I will touch about that a bit. So thank you very much. In my presentation, I will talk a bit about the water challenge that Egypt is facing actually, and what we are facing and how we are dealing with that, and then maybe some potential cooperation with Japan on some of those issues as well. So to talk about challenges that are facing Egypt, so population growth is one of the most important challenge. Population growth means that you have more population. That means that we need more resources, and in the same time, our water resources actually are limited. Based on the agreement with Sudan in 1959, we have 55.5 billion cubic meter per year from the Nile, which is actually 98% of our water resources. So the population of Egypt at that time, 1959, was like 20 million. Now we are 110 million. With the same amount of water, but the per capita water share has decreased from 2,000 almost cubic meter per capita per year to 500 cubic meter per capita per year. With population growth, by the end of this century, you might reach 200 cubic meter per capita per year. So on the same time, we have also impact of Upper Nile development. This is really unilateral action that's taken by some of the one of the, I would say, Nile basin countries, which also impacting how the Nile water that is coming to Egypt. So this is something that we're trying to deal with, but of course it's one of the main challenges that Egypt is facing. Increase in water demand and competition among different sectors. This is, again, so we have competition among the municipal sector, industrial sector, services, and agriculture. And more or less the priorities are clear. So municipal comes first, and then industry, service, and usually agriculture comes at the end. And that means also, as we have water gap, that also means that we have food gap. And that food gap is also increasing. Water gap is increasing with time, and also food gap is increasing with time. We need to actually, now we are importing 50% of wheat, which is our stable food for now. And this is another issue when we talk about food security. Also, one of the challenges is aging of irrigation and drainage networks. So some of those, our networks, our structures more than 200 years old. It needs rehabilitation, it needs maintenance, and that costs a lot actually to maintain and rehabilitate those structures. Water quality issues is another point. Pollution coming from the different socio-economic activities, how to deal with that. Cost of treatment, which is another issue that we are trying to do, and to carry out, but also cost is an issue. That's also, we say that lack of adequate finance, lack of adequate investment is another issue, another challenge in investment, but also in operation and maintenance. And also the impact of climate change. I'm talking about the impact of climate change. Egypt has 4 main impacts when we talk about the water sector. As I said, the Nile water represents 98% of the water resources, and Egypt is the most downstream country of the basin, so whatever happens of climate change in the basin will impact Egypt as the most downstream country. And that means that 98% of our freshwater resources is threatened, or it might be reduced because of climate change. Different scenarios, different models, different GCMs give different results, but in general, the trend is that we might have less water from the Nile. A huge impact on Egypt because we are depending totally on that. Another impact is the one that Engineer Salwa has talked about, the sea level rise in the northern coast, how this is impacting and threatening the areas along the coast. So our investments, our mega cities in those areas, our agricultural lands, but also threatening the groundwater in the delta, which is our food basket. So again, threatening an important area of agricultural lands. In the Red Sea area, it is more the extreme events. So we have rainfall, heavy rainfall in those areas, even if it's not that heavy, but because of the mountainous nature of those of the area in Sinai and the Red Sea, then that is transformed into flash floods. So again, a threat. At the same time, it is an opportunity. If we can tap that water, if we can harvest that water, then we can use it, either in lakes or to recharge groundwater and then reuse. But this is a very important. As I said, it's not much, but in those areas, it has a great value for the community in those areas. Another important impact is the hotter and drier weather, which means that we will have more demand for different sectors, especially the agriculture sector. So again, the increase on the demand side. In a nutshell, this is the water budget of Egypt, 114 cubic meter per capita per year, the total water demand. Out of that, we import 34 billion cubic meter per capita of virtual water. And that leaves us with 80 billion that we need to satisfy within our borders. If, we have 59.4, and that means we have a gap of 21.6 cubic meter per year of water gap. And to close that gap, what we are currently doing is that we are reusing water. So we are using drainage water, we are using treated wastewater, we are using shallow groundwater, which is not a resource, but rather a separate resource, I would say, but seeped water from the irrigation networks, from the agricultural lands, usually in the winter season, in the low demand season, and then farmers reuse that in the high season, in the summer season. So it is a sort of reuse. And also have added to that, are trying to add additional 2 mega projects, one in the Eastern Delta that treats 5.6 million cubic meter per day of agriculture water and reuse it, and one in Western Delta, which is under construction, the project, with 7.5 million cubic meter per day capacity of treatment and reuse of agriculture drainage. Yeah, I think that I will not go. This is a bit explains the development of the water policy of Egypt a long time. So, 1975. This is after the construction of the High Aswan Dam. At that time, we had more resources than demands. So it was more focusing on the supply side and how we really can supply the water to the right location with the right quality and so on. And that was okay until I would say early 90s, and then the balance changed. The demands increased, have an increase in demand that actually it is more than the water resources that happened around 1993. And then the policies and strategies again tackle the other side of the balance, so the demand side. And at that time, we started to think about supply and demand management. And in late 90s, when also we have the concept of the IWRM started to actually to be globally used. And then also our plans, our strategies was based on IWRM principles starting from 1997, so National Water Resources Plan, the first phase, the second phase, and also our water strategy for 2050. They are all based on IWRM principles. And this is I would say, the NWRB 2037. It has 4 pillars, either to increase the demand, the resources, so add additional water resources, or to reduce the demand, to rationalize water use and raise the efficiency, and to enhance water quality. Because we are reusing water, so again, enhancing water quality is a prerequisite to any reuse. And the cross-cutting pillar is enabling environment. This is the heart of the plan, I would say. I know that you cannot see any of this, but what is important actually is the elements. So the elements are objectives, the 4 ones that I have mentioned, also sub-objectives, specific measures that identify who should do what to be done, I would say, the measures specifically. And then the next part is stakeholders, different ministries, different actors, private sector, water user associations, so the roles and responsibilities, who should do what, and then what is our indicators and what is our targets at the end of the day, each 5 years. So this is actually the heart of the plan. Quickly over the 4 objectives to improve enabling environment. Here we talk about the coordination platforms, how we really can coordinate among the different stakeholders. Water is a cross-cutting issue that actually deals with many stakeholders. In Egypt, we have at least 10 ministries that are involved in water management. So how to coordinate among those different actors, it is an important part of the enabling environment. Regulatory framework to be revised and updated, and that actually happened. So after the plan was issued in 2017, we had a new water law in 2021 that tackles many of the issues that was actually, I would say, emerged in that time, mainly climate change impacts, how to deal with that, coastal protection, rainfall, dealing with rainfall and flash floods, many of the issues that are related to linked to climate change, but also the law also tackled the participatory management of water, so involving water user association, involving private sector as well, promotion of private sector in the water sector. Another issue, another important one, is the awareness raising. Another very important issue. We talk about enabling environment and capacity development. Again, very important for the professional in the water sector. Adding additional water resources, we don't have much to do actually there, but still, of course, our strategic objective is to continue our cooperation with the Nile Basin countries. We are part of the Nile Basin. We have very good relations with many of the countries in the Nile Basin. So that is a strategic direction. Additional water resources from rainfall harvesting, which also we talked about. Desalination, still very costly, but it is a very important measure dealing with, when we talk about the municipal sector. But also now we are thinking about desalination for agriculture use. Still, we need to talk about something which is low cost or cost effective that can be feasible to be used in agriculture. We're starting that now with UNDP actually, with a number of countries in the region. Hopefully that will help in enhancing the technologies and also reducing the cost of desalination. additional groundwater, but we have to deal with that carefully because it is another renewable resource that we need to deal with that very carefully. Improve water quality, and then here we talk about reducing pollution from municipal sector, from industrial sector, from agriculture sector, but also treating the drainage water. I talked about the 2 mega project. This is more towards the last point that I have mentioned, that you have a mixed drainage water, agriculture, mixed with municipal, maybe treated or untreated, also industry, and then you treat the whole package. It's a huge plant at the end of the pipe, you can say that. And this is the enhancement of the management of water use, which we have potential there actually. Here we talk about the irrigation modernization, we talk about the infrastructure and the rehabilitation of infrastructure, we talk about rationalizing the water use in municipal sector, industrial sector, so actually rationalize the water use in different sectors and tackling, especially the agriculture sector, which is using 76% of our water resources in the current situation. I'll conclude in. Those measures use, I would say, needs huge investment. We talk about $50 billion over the 20 years. For Egypt, this is much actually. This is not. I mean, our budget is not really going in that direction. I would say we had. I should say that we had more investments as a ministry in the last 5-6 years than we used to have, but still we have some lack of investments there. But when we divide that over the different pillars, we can see that the water quality pillar is the most, the one that has the highest investment needs, mainly because of wastewater treatment plants, industrial wastewater treatment plants. And then comes the second pillar, enhancing the water use, and then adding additional water resources, and then the enabling environment. When we divide that over the different ministries, we can see the burden. We can see that the burden is much more over the two ministries: Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, and Ministry of Housing. Maybe each of them with 35%, and then the 30% is divided over a number of other ministries that are involved in the water sector. This is my last slide. I put some potential fields for cooperation actually with Japan, based on what we have here today, but also based on previous discussion with the Japanese side. So I would say that dealing with extreme events, rainfall and flash floods, something that is we can really cooperate along. Dealing with seaside extreme events as well, coastal zone management, irrigation modernization, smart irrigation, participatory water management. Here I talk about the water user associations, digital transformation for better water management, infrastructure asset management. Here we talk about pump stations, water structures, and so on. Joint applied research, and international water agenda. So those are few points that I put. I would say I also trying to help Takahiro with that, who's drafting the MOU, to add some of the fields of potential cooperation. So this is, I would say with that, I come to the conclusion of my presentation, and thank you very much.
As the head of the Permanent Secretariat of Cairo Water Week, you got actually 2 additional minutes. I think it's fair. Okay. Thank you very much, Engineer Walid, for this informative presentation and focused presentation summarizing the whole case of water view of Egypt from strategic perspective. It's very informative indeed. Now I think I would like to thank all the speakers for the commitment of the timing of each presentation. I think we are on time. The issue that we only started late due to some technical constraints and the delays in previous sessions. So we apologize for this delay. And now we can open the floor for something like 5 to 10 minutes of questions and discussions. If anyone has a question regarding to flood risks, shore protection, and any other water-related or water management-related thing that is presented just now. Questions, please. Yes, please.
My name is Toshio Koike. They are from Japan. I want to ask the two questions to the last speaker. The first one is, you have already considered the climate change impact in your management. You mentioned in case of the National Water Resources Plan from 2017 and 2037, how can you have already introduced the climate change impact in planning? For example, in Japan, my colleague, Mr. Konami, introduced, we applied 1.1 factor to the design rainfall. That comes from the large ensemble climate projection. So I want to know how you have already introduced the climate change projection information into your planning. This is the first question. Second one, you introduced very nicely many ministries coordination and the budget plan. So in case of Japan, Mr. Saito is under the Prime Minister. The Cabinet Office, Japan established the Water Resources Management Body. That is a cross-ministerial coordination mechanism. I want to know the institutional framework of your country. Thank you.
Engineer Walid, you can use this. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question regarding how we talk the climate change impacts in the plan. It was not from the structural point of view, I would say. It was more, or I would say it is more from the estimation of the inflow of the Nile, for example, using the different GCM, different global circulation models, how that will impact the inflow of Egypt, and then we have different scenarios for that, and then we dealt with the most, I would say what they call it, the ordinary case, I would say. I mean, have some scenarios with increase and decrease, and they'll have that some sort of sensitivity analysis, you can say, to deal with that. This is from the point of inflow. From the coastal zone management is another also issues regarding the sea level rise, different scenarios, and also how that will impact the areas in the coastal areas, and then also different scenarios to deal with that, but also identifying hotspots along the Mediterranean coast where we need some sort of protection based on those analysis in a way. So that was the first question. The second question, the coordination platform. Actually, we had a number of coordination platforms that developed over time. But since we issued the first National Water Resources Plan, and that was in 2002, we recommended to have what we call a National Water Council. A National Water Council, which is chaired by the Prime Minister, and then different ministers are members of those council. Unfortunately, it took some time for that to develop. So we had, as I said, we had transitional periods. We have different bodies that was trying to coordinate. But finally, in the new water resources law that I also talked about in 2021, now the National Water Council is there. So finally, we have that. We need to operationalize that in a way, in the right way. It is chaired by the Prime Minister. It has the different ministers there, but also it had a representation for the farmers, for example. And this is for the first time to happen, that we have water user association at different levels, and then the representative of the water user association at the national level is a member of that National Water Council. Again, try to involve the beneficiaries in the decision making in a way. So this is what we have now, but as I said, it needs some sort of operationalization of that to be really working on the ground. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Walid, for this response. More questions, please. Yes, please, Dr. Saber. Just a second, please. The mic is coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Sabra Abdal. I'm coming from Germany. I have a question related to coastal zone management in Egypt, especially with the climate change and the trend toward climate action according to the Sustainable Development Goals. I see that climate action with the two parts, adaptation and mitigation of climate change, is a very important aspect. But when I look at the coastal cities along the Mediterranean in Egypt, I find that the authorities are applying a lot of concrete. And I see that there is a lot of opportunities for for nature-based solutions. For example, you have a lot of sand along the coast, and you can build a lot of dunes. You can build a lot of vegetation. I don't know why you are going to the trend of using a lot of concrete structure and not going to nature-based solution. Thank you very much.
Engineer Salwa, why you are not doing more natural-based solutions rather than concrete structures?
Okay, can you hear me? I will answer in Arabic. Okay. طبعا النيتشر بيست سوليوشن ما بتبقاش صالحه لاي مكان، وخاصه في البحر الابيض المتوسط. ده بيعتمد، احنا عندنا قسم خاص للبحوث والدراسات، هم اللي بيعملوا الدراسات وبيعملوا انفستيجيشن وبيعملوا كل حاجه، وبيقولوا اذا كان دي ينفع فيها اللي هي المواد صديقه للبيئه ولا الهارد ستراكشرز. ده بيعتمد على نوع النحر وشده النحر وطبيعه الارض وتوافر السند والارض منخفضه ولا لا. ففي عوامل كتيره بيتم دراستها بالاداره المركزيه للبحوث والدراسات، بيبقى خاصه للموضوع ده. فمش اي مكان ينفع فيه استخدام مشروعات صديقه للبيئه، ومش اي مكان برضه ينفع فيه ان احنا نستخدم مشروعات اللي هي بالهارد ستراكشرز، لان غالبا اي مشروع هارد ستراكشرز بيبقى ليه نيجاتيف امباكتس، وبيبقى ليه اثر على الجار، وخاصه اللي قبله، سواء جرايند سواء بريك ووترز او اي حاجه. لكن مش كل الاماكن بينفع معاها المواد الصديقه للبيئه. احنا عندنا مشروع في الهيئه المصريه العامه لحمايه الشواطئ، عملنا اكتر من حوالي 69 كيلو متر مستخدمين فيها اللي هي المواد صديقه للبيئه، كانت منحه من صندوق المناخ الاخضر. عملنا مشروعات كتيره نجحت كلها الحمد لله، بس دي كانت علشان ان احنا الارض كانت منخفضه وبنحميها من الفلاد، وبنعمل دايك، وبنعمل كلها مواد صديقه للبيئه من الساند نورشمنت او الدايك، من كلها مواد environmental يعني accepted. لكن في اماكن تانية بتسبب نحر شديد ما ينفعش خالص فيها السند، لان بيتاكل السند، ودي اللي بيقرر اذا كان ينفع ولا ما ينفعش البحوث والدراسات عندنا في الهيئه المصريه العامه. بس الاتجاه ان احنا يعني از وي كان ان احنا بنحاول نعمل مشروعات كلها يعني معتمده على اللي هي النيتشر بيست سوليوشن، بس مش في كل الاماكن بينفع فيها الحلول دي. شكرا.
Thank you, Engineer Salwa. I believe Engineer Walid has a comment.
Also, we have mentioned an MOU. Okay, I have mentioned the potential MOUs with the Japanese. I mean, just now in the presentation, but also tomorrow we'll sign an MOU with the Netherlands actually regarding sand survey and sand mapping to map the sand resources, offshore sand resources, so that also we can use it for sand nourishments. So as Engineer Salwa have mentioned, it is the potential of also going to nature-based solution is there. We need to explore a bit where are the sand resources, what is the feasibility of using that in different hotspots. So this is part of the discussion that is going on, but also as she correctly mentions that we can use that in specific areas, specific solutions, but we cannot use it everywhere. So this is, but the ministry in general is actually going towards more and more towards nature-based solutions whenever it is feasible along the coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Walid. Other questions, please? Any other questions? So I ask. Okay. Just last couple of questions, actually. One to Mr. Tosheyu on the very informative presentation, and I would ask this question to you and Dr. Dua also from the Egyptian side. Both of you, please. My question is, you mentioned in your presentation the flood mapping of Asia. You are now working on making a flood mapping of Asia rather than the mapping you are making for flood protection for Japan. Would you think that making such flood mapping for the neighborhooding affecting the results if you are making only flood mapping for one country? And the same question also for Dr. Dua, are we making in Egypt this kind of neighborhooding flood mapping, or no effect from other countries close to our country? Dr. Tosheyo, please.
Test, okay.
Yeah, oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much for your questions. And yeah, of course, I just briefly introduced the name of the country, but we and they select the certain river basins in the Indonesia, of certain river basin in the Cambodia. So that's why the flood mapping itself is working in the certain one river basins in each country. That's why not all countries' river basins, they select the representative of river basins.
So it's individual mapping, you mean?
Individual river basin
together,
mapping.
But you are not making a global mapping to the same area,
No,
to
no,
the whole area. Okay. Would this affect? Would this make any effect? Individual mapping rather than global mapping? Flood?
Actually, the global mapping, yeah, of course, we can use the global mapping available existing data, but they are not so reliable. That's why we can recommend the certain river basins to collect the information and revise and think about the river basin situations, conditions.
Okay.
So that's the manager should understand the river basin's conditions. That's through this project, we can recommend to consider that river basins, the conditions and yes, that's a big the target for this project.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tosheyo. Dr. Dua, do you have any insights from the Egyptian side on this?
Yeah, actually, yes. Actually, in Egypt, we already done kind of mapping about the hazard map. And if there is a good information about the place, information about the land cover, land use, and details about the communities and the people, we can do to take vulnerability maps and then give a risk map. So in usual, we already have a hazard mapping for any WEDI system. But if we have more details of data, we can produce a risk map.
Okay. Thank you very much. One last question? Okay. I would like just to thank you all, and I would ask Engineer Walid to close the session with final remarks.
Yeah, I think we kept you actually enough for today, so I just want to thank you very much for being with us and bearing with us that session, which is a bit late in the day, but we try to manage also the right time for both sides to be there. I mean, the Egyptian and Japanese side. So just to thank you very much for being with us, and hope that we have a very good discussion, in my opinion. Hope that you enjoyed the session, and looking forward to see you in the remaining days of the Cairo Water Week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guests, and thank you, esteemed speakers. Thank you, and good night.